Welcome to For Every Response, the podcast from Emergency Services Times, sponsored by MSA Safety. In this series, we bring you sessions from the Emergency Services Show and the Emergency Tech Show 2025. With a focus on fitness at this year's show, listen to firefighter performance coach Phill Matthews as he shares great advice and tips on how to stay well while working on shifts. He talks about healthy eating, fitting in exercise, and the importance of good sleep, all of which contribute to well-being for those working in the emergency services.
Do you want to just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, first of all?
Yes, of course. So my name's Phill. I'm the founder of Fighting Fire Fit. I started Fighting Fire Fit as I was a fire service fitness advisor and a whole-time firefighter at the same time. I watched countless aspiring firefighters fail to get in because they failed the physical selection process. And I realized that something that seemed so simple to me as a personal trainer, these new recruits were coming in with no idea how to prepare physically for the job, how demanding the job was. So I started off just helping aspiring firefighters get into the job. I then very quickly realized serving firefighters were facing exactly the same challenges. So the demands of the shift work, the nutrition, the training, and obviously the traumatic events we go to. So I started off helping them. And then earlier this year, I left my job as a whole-time firefighter because I was able to see that I was having such an impact through Fighting Fire Fit. And that was something I wanted to continue doing despite loving being a firefighter.
So what do you think then in the experience, obviously you talked there about people joining the service, but there are challenges for people in the service as well. Are there you're talking about fire service, it's similar across ambulance, police, other blue lights. What are the challenges facing people in understanding sort of what fitness level they need, or, what do they sort of struggle with, would you say?
I think it can be very difficult because you know there's an annual fitness test, you know there's an entry fitness test, but then I do find the correlation between that test and sort of the demands of the job can be very different. I think a lot of people, especially in fire, when they get in, they'll do that entry test, but then they'll get on the recruits course and they'll be shocked how physically demanding it is. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with serving firefighters, then trying to maintain that fitness throughout their career, especially as their retirement age is climbing. Yeah. We're trying to keep people fitter into their 40s and their 50s so they can handle the job for longer. So there's a big emphasis on trying to maintain that fitness as you move through your career.
Yeah. And I guess, like all of us, actually tackling fitness as you get older is different from when you're doing it in your 20s. So your regime might have to change as your career develops.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things I recommend to new recruits or people who are just getting into any of the blue light services is that you want to build as much strength, as much fitness and as much muscle mass as you can in your younger years. It is a lot easier to build strength, muscle mass and fitness in your 20s and 30s than it is to get into your 40s or to get into your 50s, realise you're not quite fit enough, and then be trying to play catch up. That's a real challenge. One of the reasons I mentioned muscle mass is because having more muscle mass makes us a little bit more resilient on the job as well. So again, as we get older, hormone levels start to decrease. That is so important for maintaining strength and resilience as well.
So when people reach out to you to work with you, what sort of things are you finding they're asking for help with?
It's often managing the demands of the job, so the shift work around their training, their nutrition. They're not really sure how to structure it. They see a lot of stuff online of that you should be in the gym 6-7 days a week. But this is people who are working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and are able to go to the gym every evening after work. So it's trying to teach them that in the blue light services, we need a little bit more of a flexible approach. We need to be able to move sessions around, and we need to be really on the ball with our nutrition and planning in advance. And it's having the understanding that as a first responder, we can't have an all or nothing approach because it just doesn't work with the demands we're facing.
Yeah, okay. And then, so when people do come to you, what are there key areas that you talk to them about? I think before we met previously, we talked about training, about nutrition, the importance of sort of well-being generally, and that's quite a big term. So what do you start to advise them about across those different areas?
So we'll start with training. So as I was saying, we always want to look at progress over perfection. So we can't have an all or nothing approach. We need to be able to manage our sessions across a week around our shifts, trying to plan those in around when our energy levels are highest, but also having the ability to move those sessions around if needed. So if we're absolutely shattered after a night shift, we're probably best off moving that session to a later day. So that's where we start in terms of training. When it comes to nutrition, my biggest piece of advice is always we need to be planning and prepping in advance. without that planning and prepping in advance, what's going to happen is you're going to finish a night shift or you're going to get called out and you've got nothing ready. And we all know what happens when you go into a supermarket absolutely starving. You're just not going to be sticking to the plan. It's just not going to go well. So
That's if you make it to a supermarket rather than McDonald's, I'm guessing.
Yes, and that's it. And again, it comes down to progress over perfection, because if your current go-to is McDonald's, well, going for a meal deal and a packet of crisps is in itself progress. And it's about making small habit changes over time.
Do you think some people struggle with making a start, or that age-old, I've started a diet, I've fallen off a cliff because I've been on holiday and had loads of stuff, and now I come back and I won't bother starting again. Is that a common issue for people as well?
Yeah, massively. And I think, again, it comes down to that all or nothing approach, that I either need to be bang on and perfect and chicken and rice 8 times a day, or I need to be not having anything good, McDonald's all the time. So it's just about making those small changes. So we said a second ago about swapping McDonald's for a packet of crisps and a sandwich. Well, that in itself is a start. Again, we don't need the perfect 5-6 day workout program. A couple of days a week, go in, just use a couple of the machines. Like it can be so simple. We don't need to overcomplicate it. And often that's the barrier into starting.
Okay. And then, so if we talk there about the importance of planning around nutrition and things, what about sort of getting the balance right? Again, when you're working shifts, I imagine it really messes with your sleep systems as well. So what can people do to sort of help resolve that or avoid issues with not getting enough sleep?
With not getting enough sleep is always going to be difficult for first responders, especially those who do work all night. The biggest thing there is when you're getting home is trying to maintain that normal, healthy bedtime routine. So if when you're at home and you're not on shift, you're supposed to be putting your phone down an hour before bed, you should be stopping watching TV, so no blue lights. You should then have a little bit of a wind down routine. So some people it's reading, some people it's audiobooks. I've recently found a few people in the emergency services use adult colouring books, which I didn't know was a thing, but it really helps them take their mind off the day, especially if you've had a few traumatic incidents. That can really help you wind down, relax, and get ready to be into a bit more of a sleep mode, which is going to be difficult.
Okay. So we talked a bit about nutrition, we talked a bit about planning, talked a little bit about the importance of sleep. What about, and then training? What about, I mean, do all personnel have access to a gym at work, or is that, do you think, quite unique maybe for the fire service?
I've seen it in police and fire. Ambulance don't have that luxury at all. Some police do, some police don't. So that can be difficult. And I think that's where it's important to have those smaller, sharper sessions that you're able to get in and out in 20 minutes, just do something for your mental and physical well-being.
Yeah.
It can also act as a little bit of a wind down, that barrier between you leaving work and you getting home to start that wind down routine, ready for sleep or ready to spend a bit of time with your family.
And in terms of then, if you can't get to the gym, do you think there are other alternatives people can look to? Because I think that's all can sometimes be a bit of a barrier if you're not a lover of the gym. Are there other things people can do to sort of replicate the exercises you need? Yeah,
absolutely. It doesn't need to be about going to a gym. It can be getting out on your bike. It can be going for a walk around a park. Like even 10-15-minute walk when you get home from work can be really beneficial to bringing down those cortisol stress levels and getting you ready for sleep. The biggest thing is to try and find a form of physical activity you enjoy. That way, it won't feel like exercise. If you're not particularly a fan of the gym, for me, that's mountain biking. I love getting out on my mountain bike and I'm able to really enjoy that. I'll push much harder than if I'm sat on a static bike at the gym, but I get the exact same benefits from it.
Yeah. I'm just curious now, but in terms of when you're working with people that are in active service, can they get some support also through their own services, through occupational health or whatever, or is that a bit limited, would you say?
Unfortunately, occupational health is often a little bit limited.
Yeah.
They don't, especially if it's a occupational health that is outside of the service or an external party that's brought in.
Yeah.
They just don't understand the demands of the job, and they're kind of looking at it as a medical perspective rather than a resilience and fitness and longevity perspective.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So in terms then of sort of any top tips that you've got for people, what sort of thing what are the first things you tackle, or what are the sort of things that you would recommend straight away to somebody that comes to you?
So the first one is training, not to have that all or nothing approach. There's plenty you can do in a couple of sessions a week, or even getting out for a walk or doing some sort of physical activity outside of work that you enjoy. The next one with nutrition is always planning and prepping in advance. You need food prepped in advance, otherwise it's just not going to go to plan. You're not going to have things ready. And we all know how it is coming off a night shift and then having to try and cook. It's just not going to happen. The second thing with nutrition is to have a backup plan as well. So have some go-to snacks or some meals that you know you can grab quickly, that if you have been called out mid-meal or you've been disturbed, you're able to then revert back to that.
Okay.
This episode of the Emergency Services Times podcast is sponsored by MSA Safety, proudly supporting emergency services and first responders on the front line. At MSA Safety, protecting first responders isn't just what we do, it's who we are. We work closely with fire and rescue services across the UK to develop and deliver safety solutions designed to meet your ever-evolving needs. That includes MSA Bristol Firefighter PPE, trusted by services across the UK and beyond, shaped through years of collaboration with frontline teams. It also includes our growing investment in innovation and technology, from the connected M1 SCBA modular solution to our agile, fully managed service model that helps keep crews protected and ready to respond. But for us, safety goes beyond equipment. We believe in standing shoulder to shoulder with the people who dedicate their lives to protecting others, whether it's supporting firefighter charities, backing mental health initiatives, or showing up for community events. MSA is proud to be part of the Emergency Services family. To learn more about our work in the UK and how we're supporting first responders every step of the way, visit www.msasafety.com. With MSA Safety, when you go in, we go in with you.
The other thing I want to touch on is mental health and well-being and stress levels.
Yeah.
How important is it for people to maintain sort of a fitness level as part of that overall looking after your mental health?
It's so important, that daily physical activity, whether that's a walk, whether that's getting in the gym or something else. There's a huge correlation between your mental health and your physical health. So we need to be keeping your physical health high because it's going to massively benefit your mental health and your well-being. One of the biggest challenges I often see in blue light workers is there is a real risk of burnout. Now, when it comes to burnout, this doesn't happen overnight. This is sort of repeated exposure to stress. What we can do in this instant is there are a few really important signs and symptoms that we can recognize early. So we've got things like low mood, low motivation, if you're not recovering between shifts, if your sleep is poor, even if you're getting like niggling injuries in the gym that just aren't getting better. And unfortunately, there's often a reliance on caffeine or sugar or even alcohol to then get you through those stressful times. It's important to know that for yourself, but also for your colleagues as well, to be able to support them.
Okay. And what do you think, talking about colleagues then, is there a role in actually people looking after their colleagues as well, and perhaps having those conversations if they notice somebody is overly stressed, they're not perhaps doing the exercise, they're eating badly, what would you advise people do in those sort of situations?
It can be really difficult, but you will often notice it because it comes down to that irritability or not wanting to do certain things. So if they're a little bit snappy, the chances are they're starting to get a little bit burnt out. And if this is over a prolonged period as well. So one of the first things is just sit down and have a conversation with them. Just ask them if they're okay, but also do it in a way that you're encouraging them to talk. So not just, are you all right, mate? Because we all know what the response is like, yeah, I'm good. So by sitting down with them, taking them out for a coffee or something like that, you're opening up that conversation rather than just that simple, are you okay? Which always you get back, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of emphasis on personal resilience at the moment. And I think there's a concern that what that does is shift all the responsibility for burnout onto the individual, when actually it's often the environment they are in which is contributing to that, right?
Massively. I think it's important to recognise that if we start talking about resilience, that can sometimes reflect that I've just got to push through, I've just got to keep going, I can't stop, I've got to be resilient. That's why those early warning signs are important to recognise. But just like if we're referring to the gym, you wouldn't go to the gym 7 days a week. So if you're pushing hard at work, if you're training, if you've then got a hectic family life at home, maybe you're renovating or just got lots of job work, housework going on, it's taking that step back, taking that time to recover, doing the things you enjoy so you can be a better first responder, you can be a better parent and a better partner at home as well.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to cast out to the audience and see if we've got any questions at all. Has anyone got a question for Phill at this point?
Phill, just really thanks for your insight. I was just really interested to understand, at the moment, are you focused on supporting individuals, or have you been able to get into any of the fire services to help kind of scale and bring more effect?
Unfortunately not. So I was a fire service fitness advisor, but I just found there was too much red tape in that role. I really struggled with that role to make a difference. I wrote various reports on how we can improve the fitness testing, how we can improve resilience of staff. But there's a real barrier, especially when it comes to those minimum standards. They are the standards. So it's not the minimum standards, that is the standard. So unfortunately, not every fire service, but a lot of fire services, once you're past that point, well, there's no need to continue pushing firefighters to get stronger, fitter, and more resilient. It's just, I don't want to say it, but a bit more of a tick box exercise that once that is achieved, that's that done. Let's deal with something else now. So for now, dealing with the individuals, but I would like to have a bigger impact.
Hi there. My question's sort of in two parts. Firstly is, how are you reaching your audience at the moment? How are you getting to them?
Was that how am I reaching my audience?
Yes.
So mine's
Should we go up in volume?
pretty much just done on
Can't
Instagram.
hear this question.
So I started off Instagram. I also go through Facebook. A lot of the younger audience, so I'm getting a lot of messages from sort of people going in through their GCSEs, are actually using TikTok. So my main focus is Instagram because it's people sort of similar age to me and above. But the younger generations are heavily focused on TikTok. There is no longer using things like Google as a search engine. It's TikTok. So if they want to find out about fitness tests, if they want to find out about getting into various jobs, the first thing they'll look at is TikTok.
Thank you. And if this is a hypothetical question, let's say the National Fire Chiefs Council said you've got complete carte blanche to expand, to get across the whole of the services, to be able to provide what you're providing to everybody and to teams. What would that look like for you? What would be the dream provision to be able to support the community?
For me, there would be a big focus on having a year-long programming where firefighters work through different phases. We work through strength phases, we work through hypertrophy phases, we work through various peaking or VO2 max in different areas, endurance. I think with that, we can then test firefighters more regularly in a little bit more in-depth way to ensure that they're constantly progressing, able to handle the demands of the job. With that, you could also then look at the impact that's having on injuries, time off, and see the positive impact that would be having. So just by having that year-long program is exactly where I would start. Mandatory gym sessions. You don't get to opt out of BA training, so why do you get to opt out of going into the gym?
I think it's an interesting question you ask about the strategic stuff because I used to work for the NFCC and I know how hard it is to get, I mean, just in England, 45 different services all hopefully doing the same thing. But I think you're right. There's something here surely about services recognising the importance of that holistic looking after yourself and the role that they have as the employer in supporting that. I know we've got another question as well and I don't want to delay, but I think it's important to add there are other people operating just like Phill, you know, sort of ex-police, ex-ambulance, all operating in this space, which is filling a gap, sadly, which I think the employers should be doing. But at least there is help out there and there are people trying to sort of support. And I know there's a lot on Instagram from other colleagues like yourselves, right? Trying to promote this sort of positive message.
Yes, there is a real change in the whole blue light community that we're seeing more people trying to support their colleagues. And I think that's really beneficial.
Yeah.
Just more on nutrition, really. What are your opinion on things like Huel drinks or ready microwave meals that people have created with the assumption that they are healthy and nutritious and have all the vitamins and things? Would you use them as a really good substitute as a Mackey's or a ready meal?
Again, it's a bit of a sliding scale. We've got the sort of perfect meals where you'd cook fresh every time, you'd have a colourful plate, lots of green veggies, a source of protein. But if that's not available and that's your next best thing and that's stopping you getting those burgers or those French fries from McDonald's, then that is a beneficial thing. Only last night, I was late running check-ins for my clients. I ran over, I wasn't able to make a cooked meal. So I keep a frozen ready meal in the freezer, a healthy one that I can reach to as a bit of a backup plan if needed. So I would certainly say, if that's working for you, then continue doing so.
If I could just build on that question, what is, I'm only just starting to become aware of this, the whole sort of world of supplements and stuff. What's your view then on things like supplements to support a healthy diet? Because I'd always assumed if you're having a really healthy diet, you shouldn't need any of these supplements. But it feels like, especially as we get older, that changes, right?
Yeah, massively. The biggest one at the moment is creatine. Creatine has been studied for so many years now. They've stopped looking at it for its performance benefits, such as muscle mass, strength, power, and energy, that it's now been looked at things like dementia, cognitive performance. So it's really showing the benefits that as we get older, this is able to maintain normal brain function. So stuff like that, unless you're eating a huge amount of red meat, is really important. Things like fish oils as well. If you're not a fan of fish, you don't tend to eat it that much. That's another great one. In an ideal world, yes, we would get everything from our diet.
Yeah.
But it can be difficult, especially this day and age where everyone is so busy working shifts.
Yeah. Okay.
So looking from a nutrition point of view for converting from almost your days to nights, where you go onto a night shift from days, and obviously people have got families, busy work stuff during the day, and you'll find people up for a prolonged period of time, so they struggle with nutrition. Like when should they eat? Do they then continue eating through the night shift as if it's a day, or do they almost have their last meal at like 6-7 o'clock and then starve through to breakfast type thing?
That will always be challenging, going from one swing to the next. One of the biggest things I do with my clients is that rather than trying to look at our calories or our macronutrients in isolation for that day, we actually spread them out across a week. So I've got one lad who only works night shifts. So he goes from night shifts, and then after his first night shift, he'll stay up all day and then go to bed that night. What we do that day is we give him more calories so he can have more meals dotted around the day when he feels hungry to support him. This way he's able to stay on track, he's able to achieve all of his goals, but without that then being absolutely starving and reverting to him either eating rubbish or just going off plan completely. So I've built a little guide for everyone. This is just a very short and simple guide to show you exactly how you can get an effective workout in 16 minutes. So it's trying to move you away from this all or nothing approach. It's a very simple plan. It's something you can plug and play. You can use any time in the gym. I've given you different examples. So when you are strapped for time, you can use this and you're able to make an effective session in such a short period of time. And again, looking for that progress over perfection.
So, Phill, in closing remarks, what would you say is the one thing you want to leave the audience thinking about from today?
The one thing I would say is that we don't want an all or nothing approach. Do not let that approach be the barrier between you starting your journey or you making progress in your journey.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. Remember that by taking time to learn from our speakers, you can earn CPD points from our partner CPDme. So do check out the link in the show notes. Our thanks to MSA Safety for their continued support for our podcast and Smart Digital for producing this series. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to For Every Response, the podcast from Emergency Services Times.